Good evening, Larson Halleck here. Let's talk about game, that mystical thing that everybody wants to know but nobody can quite define. If you are watching this video, then that likely means you're at least somewhat interested in it. A way to work at attracting women, game in the words of a Spurg. This topic is still a matter of intense debate amongst the various male-oriented websites you'll find out there. Which tenets of game are the best to use, or as some would ask, whether or not the game exists at all. Yes, indeed. There are many disaffected men who feel that game is a lie and anybody who shills for it is a fool, a con artist, or both. These men come in various stripes, from those who populate slut hate, formerly known as PUA hate until some unpleasantness happened, because they tried and failed to use game in their lives, or perhaps those apathetic sorcerer's apprentices who never even bothered to try, and instead resigned themselves to a life of semi-voluntary celibacy. I myself have a virulent hatred of bad pickup artistry, which undoubtedly you know. But let's get back to the main point. Does game exist, and does it work? To answer these questions, we can look at several examples, not the least of which is myself. As I have repeatedly stated throughout my tenure as an internet superhero, I used to be an incel. From the beginnings of my teenage years to the age of 20 when I lost my virginity. Throughout middle and high school, I was shy, nerdy, physically feeble, acne-encrusted, and self-loathing. Somehow, the idea to improve myself was given to me, and through a lot of trial and error and concerted effort, I was able to make myself physically fit, confident, clean-faced, intellectual rather than nerdy, and wouldn't you know it, I managed to break out of my involuntary celibacy and get laid on the regular. Note that I have never claimed, unlike some keyboard alpha males we can name, to close Playboy models and the like. I don't rank myself much above a 7. Therefore, 6s, 7s, and 8s are the kind of women that I get. The point is, I went from nothing to something consistently and thoroughly. And it was done via deliberate self-improvement. It is here that some would argue that what I've done is not really game. These people would say that getting in shape, dressing well, and learning how to talk is just common sense, and game is some sort of nebulous concept encompassing charisma, personal magnetism, and some sort of magical word and gesture that will cause a woman's underpants to spontaneously combust. While I will always argue that 90% of the game is just commonsensical things like having a good physique, dressing in a complimentary way, or wearing deodorant, I will not deny that there is that X factor in seduction. And it is undoubtedly that non-quantifiable je ne sais quoi that causes so much confusion as to how game can work. Let's make something perfectly clear here. Throughout history, there have been many fat, ugly, repulsive men that have slain the poon. Samuel Pepys, Gregory Rasputin, Henry Kissinger, and the list goes on. The fact that these ugly people could have a small army of paramours traipsing through their bedchambers should leave no doubt that there is something to attraction beyond the mere physical. It is here that game denialists will attempt to shut me down by saying that those 4 examples I cited were merely powerful and wealthy people whose attractiveness was entirely based in power and wealth, and that their seduction would never work were it not for their wealth and status. I can refute that with 2 words: Mark Zuckerberg. Undoubtedly one of the world's wealthiest men, and with his hands on so much data, implicitly one of the world's most powerful men as well, so much so that he seems to be entertaining a 2020 presidential run. And yet, his wife and the mother of his children is a solid 5 out of 10 at best. Let me rephrase that. An exorbitantly wealthy, powerful, white man, using all of his power and savvy, can only get a 5 out of 10 Asian woman. Yeah, for the purposes of this video, I'm considering Zuckerberg a white man. Please take your Jews aren't white purity horseshit somewhere else, please. How much of a loser must Mark Zuckerberg be to be as wealthy and powerful as he is, and court a woman from an ethnicity that has been repeatedly documented to be attracted to his own, and not be able to get anyone more attractive? I'm not one to fetishize Asian women, but I have dated 2 in the past, and both of them were more attractive than Mrs. Zuckerberg. Now, they were, on the other hand, both jungle Asians, so maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. So no, looking at Facebook's CEO as an example, I don't think you can just give any dweeb millions of dollars and have them impregnate the denizens of a lingerie catalog. A loser with billions of dollars is still a loser, albeit one with nice toys. In other words, game is something you can have, or not have, something you can work at, and it can greatly facilitate your sexual pursuits. As for what that mysterious X factor is, and why some men just don't seem to have it despite all the advantages, well, we've already asked the question, does game work? And while I don't think it should be marketable as some rigidly defined thing in a box, I feel there is something to it. One is not limited to the hand you're dealt with at birth when it comes to your sexual prowess. No matter how good or bad you look, you can improve your sexual standing with concerted effort and study. So the question remains, what is the game? What exactly is it that you improve when you improve your game? In other words, why is it that some men, some of whom are famously ugly, like Henry Kissinger, Grigory Rasputin, or yes, even the famous Giacomo Casanova, were able to seduce beautiful women, yet others who are, closer to being conventionally attractive, like Mark Zuckerberg or Jeb Bush, completely failed in the mating game, despite the fact that Zuck and Jeb were equal or perhaps even superior to the above-stated Kavorka men in terms of power, wealth, and prestige. Let's look at the 4 examples of ugly studs that I like to refer to: Samuel Pepys, Henry Kissinger, Giacomo Casanova, and Grigory Rasputin. There's not a lot that they seem to have in common. Pepys was a middle-class civil servant who repeatedly cheated on his wife and got into fights with her about it, shortly followed by wonderful make-up sex. Rasputin, a slovenly peasant lay preacher that talked his way into high society. Kissinger, a callous and Machiavellian diplomat whose record is, to put it mildly, divisive. And Casanova, a dandy who was notable for bathing daily in the 1700s, and in many cases, treating women much nicer than other men at the time. In a few notable cases in his memoirs, getting up early to cook them breakfast. So clearly, having game is not merely an application of being an asshole or having the dark triad, or cultivating a sexy slovenliness to entice rich women to slum it. Now, while those things can be used to attract women, you don't need them. In other words, you can be a nice person and still get women. I myself like to think of myself as a pretty nice person, and I myself have made this point in my previous work. I've explained the difference between cool assholes and uncool assholes. However, let us take a look at what these 4 ugly studs do have in common. All 4 of them lived very interesting lives with lots of stories and anecdotes to tell. All 4 of them were supremely confident in their ability, and they could prove it with their track record of success. All of them were eloquent speakers, and most importantly, all of them were capable of reading the women they were attempting to seduce and modulate their attack to appeal to them. Rasputin exploited a timely fascination for sex and mysticism amongst the Russian aristocracy to get in good with them. Samuel Pepys knew how to argue with and eventually placate his wife and earn forgiveness. Henry Kissinger was a diplomat, so he could do a cold read better than anybody. And Casanova often went for aristocratic ladies trapped in loveless political marriages. Thus they created not only sexual release, but also love and affection as well. Compare those guys to guys like Mark Zuckerberg and Jeb Bush. Despite their exorbitant wealth and power, their body language shows they're not confident. They don't live interesting lives that create an air of danger that excites women. And if their public speaking appearances are any indication, they are not eloquent speakers, nor are they capable of reading people.
We're prepared to act in the national security interests of this country to get back in the business of creating a more peaceful world. Please clap.
And thus their love lives suffered as a result. As a side note, not only have I slept with more attractive Asian women than Mark Zuckerberg, I've also slept with more attractive Hispanic women than Jeb Bush. In fact, I'm pretty sure that Jeb Bush's wife is the only woman he's ever been with, and I wouldn't be surprised if Zuckerberg was the same. But I don't read the tabloids, so I don't know. Thus, in my opinion, this is the mysterious X factor that enables some men to get women and some men to live lives of involuntary celibacy. In truth, it is not a mysterious factor at all. It is merely the ability to provide value to women, and that is almost always accomplished when you earn respect in the eyes of men. Confidence, conveying that confidence with body language, and being able to speak properly. In other words, don't just run up to a woman and yell, "I have a job!" like some spurg. Be an interesting person and be capable of doing a cold read to formulate the plan of attack based on the individual woman you want. With practice, these things will become second nature to you. I will admit that even I am not Casanova, I'm not the best in the world, but I am certainly better than the vigorously masturbating autiste I once was. Anything else is just attack pattern alpha, masturbation. I'm Larson Halleck. Keep on training.
And now a word from our sponsors. Hey folks, are you a fan of Larson Halleck and the Barbaric Gentleman? Of course you are, otherwise you wouldn't be watching. Do you want to help me out somehow? If so, here's how you can give me money. You can go to patreon.com/LarsonHalleck and give me some money. Or you can donate to me via PayPal, paypal.me/LarsonHalleck. Or buy my book. Otherwise, visit my Gab, my Twitter, and keep watching the videos.